I'd like to call the meeting to order, the Board of Leavenworth County Commissioners. I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to start with a moment of silence, please. Roll call, start with Commissioner Culberson.
Here.
Commissioner Cos.
Here.
And Commissioner Smith is present. Commissioner Shimke.
Here.
And Commissioner Steele. All commissioners are present today. I'd like to open up the public comment portion of this meeting. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, please come forward and state your name. Seeing, oh. Sir. Yes, sir.
I'm just trying to check the progress on Hildebrandt Road.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hildebrandt Road, I'm just trying to check the progress on that because it's been since May, and we've been told numerous different, they've been taking bids and everything, but I mean, it's December, and I have not seen one person up there doing anything.
Okay. All right, and that's, that would be a Corps of Engineers levee road? Is that what we're talking about?
I mean, it's maintained by the county for years.
The
We had the same
levee's
issue in
not,
2012.
the road top is, the levee is maintained by the Corps of Engineers.
Yeah, but when I talk to them, they put it on y'all. When I talk to y'all, it kind of goes back to them. So who am I supposed to talk to, man?
I believe emergency management would be dealing with that, correct?
I talk to them too, and every time I ask them a question,
Well,
they can't answer it. Last time I was out here, called the sheriff on me for asking a simple question. And you know what I'm saying? Like, dude, I'm just trying to get an answer.
Okay, all right. Our county counselor, senior county counselor could probably answer this.
Mr. Chairman, I have been in contact with representatives of the levee district that comprise the levee that Mr. Hildebrandt's road runs on top of, and I call it that because it goes to the Hildebrandt House. The Corps has approved the concept of repairing that levee. It will not take place this year. It probably won't take place until late summer next year at the earliest because of the anticipated flooding. It's a situation that causes hardship for all of those in that area, but it's not one that's going to be quickly solved. I'll be happy to meet with Mr. Hildebrandt individually here and try to give him whatever information I have.
Okay.
Late summer of next year.
That river has
Yeah,
a mind of its own.
Same thing in 2012. We're going on anticipation of flooding. I mean, it's going to flood 2013.
Okay, anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Then we'll close public comment and we'll move on to administrative business. Any administrative business this time, Mr. Lawfrey?
I don't have anything administrative business-wise, other than there is an item F on the agenda today that the applicant did ask to have moved to another date because they couldn't be here today, and they did want to be in attendance when it was presented. And that was the request to grant a building permit for an accessory structure. So they couldn't be here, so they just asked.
Hollingsworth Road?
Is that the,
Okay.
yeah. So
All right.
that was the only thing, just to let you know, when we come to that on the agenda, they asked if we could move that, or just, we'll move it to another meeting when they can be in attendance.
Okay. I just got one thing. I was on a conference call yesterday with KDOT, and this is, if you could hand it to the commissioners. That's really nothing to discuss, just maybe we can discuss it in our work session this afternoon.
Thank you.
I had one thing, I don't know if this is where I should bring it up, but the planning and zoning and county council are working on a frequently asked questions document
Okay.
on County Road 1. And I wanted to see if I could get the board's permission to do a mailing to the residents affected.
I don't have a
I
problem
don't
with
have a
that
problem with
one.
that at all. That seems like a
No,
good
that's
idea.
county business, pretty much.
Yeah, works for me.
Works for me.
Thank you.
It's consensus of the board. Okay, any other administrative business this time? Okay, well, speaking of that and zoning and comprehensive plans, I just want to go on record as saying I wish we would have mailed out mailers to everybody to do the survey instead of it online. 'Cause like I said, one of the top things was high-speed internet in rural areas.
Absolutely.
So, just want to go on record as that, saying that, so. We'll move on to consent agenda. Anything, commissioners had a chance to look at everything on the consent agenda? Any questions or concerns on the consent agenda?
A lot of autopsies this past.
It was.
Yeah, there were.
Like,
I
wow.
couldn't believe that.
I just had one, it came up, of course, associated with the comprehensive plan, so it looked like there was an adjusted entry, probably because it was just allocated to the wrong line item, but it did beg the question, because there were, I think, two payments made on the comprehensive plan, just where we're at as far as payment applications go relative to the larger project, and are we going to look at this one like we've talked about on a, closed job review meeting? Here was the estimated budget relative to the comprehensive plan. Here's where we're at relative to date. They're probably going to come in sooner rather than later with an update. I think maybe after the first of the year is what the anticipated update was. I just was curious where we're at as far as the payments go.
It's like all the other projects that we do, large projects, we typically have milestones.
Milestone billing,
And they
right.
submit a milestone billing, and then we submit a payment. So that's what you're seeing when those come in. And we can certainly do a wrap-up at the end to show where it came in budgetarily. I think the only adjustment to the comp plan so far has been the additional
That
meeting
additional
that we
meeting and change order.
that we
at our direction,
requested.
right?
That would be the only thing.
Okay.
If
This
it,
is probably application 2 of 3 then?
that I don't know, I
Okay.
wouldn't, but yeah, it's just a milestone payment.
Any other questions or concerns on the consent agenda? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? None, having none, voting?
Aye.
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 We're ready for Public Works.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Morning, Lauren.
Morning.
I have brought to you this morning 3 RBAs, 2 you're fairly familiar with, but we will start with the E58 bridge, a supplemental presented by GBA for some additional scope added to their existing contract to include a SWIP, agency correspondence required for permitting, and document submittals for the NOI. The adjusted supplemental is not to exceed $4,052.
And how are we doing on right-of-way acquisition on that? Is that started?
We have lined somebody up. I believe the last information I had with him was I'm checking on final staking, and then he and myself will go out,
Okay.
inspect the staking, and that will be begun. We've met with the
Sometimes
owner.
that kind of holds things up too.
We are hopeful that it will not.
Right.
There are only 3 properties for this, 3 owners. And most of the easements, I believe there's only 1 permanent construction and 3 temporary constructions. So we are hopeful that it will not be a
And
long
maybe
process.
Commissioner Culberson can help assist on that.
Yeah.
We would welcome any help.
Okay. Any questions on the GBA bridge supplemental 2?
I just wondered, was this, missed in the initial scope by GBA or by us? Like,
They originally did not think that it would be needed to do as much groundwork disturbance as, once they finally got into the design, they found that it was going to require an NOI. And so this is
Okay.
just, once we got into the design.
You could have got under an acre, huh? You've been all right,
okay, okay.
you know. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the GBA for E58 bridge.
Make a motion that we approve GBA E58 Bridge Supplement Number 2 for permitting services and amount not to exceed $4,052.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Commissioners. The other two RBAs before you, we have come before you before. They're very similar in nature, so I'll kind of speak about both of them at the same time. When we
I'd rather
first,
speak about them separately.
Yeah, could we do them separately?
absolutely,
Because-
sure.
If you don't mind.
No problem at all. We will start with McEnany as it's the first on the agenda. When we first brought this to you to extend the contracts for Group 4 and 5, McEnany had presented the offer that they would honor their prices for the Group 2 bid through Group 4 and Group 5 if they could be extending their contract no less than 13 miles. We brought that to you in October, and there were some questions as to whether or not that would be the most budgetary friendly option. We went out, contacted what appeared to be the most like recent bid in the area, in the Kansas City metro area, which happened to be an Overland Park bid. And we received ranges of numbers in which those large ticket items came in. We assumed, worst case scenario, that all of their low prices were a single bidder and that would have been the competitor to the price that McEnany would have presented for the Group 2. And it came in 7.7% higher than McEnany's proposed.
What was the distance on the Plum Road project between Quivira and Plum?
That I do not know. We only worked in,
It was 1 mile.
okay.
And so when you're looking at pricing on a road project, 1 mile of road is going to be substantially higher in unit pricing than 13 miles of road.
Well, Lauren, remind me, we did the Group 2, that was over 12 miles?
Group 2 was originally 6,
6 or
I
7.
believe, 6. Each group was somewhere between 6 and 7 miles.
Okay.
So adding Group 4 and Group 5 would push it into 13
That's where it got to
above.
13. Was there not, it was Group 2, and I thought there was Group 7, and there could have been.
Correct.
Right, so those are the ones that were found. But on Group 2, wasn't McEnany the cheapest bid we
Group
had?
2 was, yes, McEnany was the lowest bidder.
And I was only just bringing that up because that was several miles versus
Right,
one.
but the lowest bid on Group 3 was Bettis, and it was lower than McEnany. So I'm opposed at any time for the commission to approve any kind of road work, construction type things without competitive bidding. That just is, that's my position, is that competitive bidding, it increases transparency, it makes certain that we give every contractor an opportunity to bid a job that is within our area or within the surrounding area. So I'm very firmly opposed to sole sourcing, or whatever you want to call it, extending a contract that is worth $3 million as opposed to, we're not, it's not like we're giving work to somebody that is an additional several $1 million, which that just
That
does
hasn't done
not-
any work.
That hasn't, and that has
Has
not done
any
work,
work.
hasn't performed or shown their performance for the county in the past, but it just really, beyond that, it is just competitive bidding is a law for a reason. And I just, when it comes to construction and contracting, and I think it's just really important that we stand by that as a commission. But that's my opinion.
Right, I think the idea was, and we talked about this, and it's been several weeks ago, if not more now, was McEnany was awarded Group 2 because they had the most competitive bid.
Correct.
While I don't know what amount of work they've completed in Leavenworth County, they are a big firm, and they
They
do
are.
complete a lot of work.
They can.
They were, I thought, creative enough to say, hey, look, we will keep our pricing in place, which is our big concern, right? All the projects that we couldn't complete this year because of our mismanagement. They were willing to keep their pricing in place if they were awarded more work. So while I don't disagree with your point, I think we looked at it and said, is there any feasible way we can do this amount of work, 13 miles, whatever it ends up being, for this price point? And it was the consensus of staff that that was highly unlikely.
But but you cannot know. You cannot know what is going to come in on a competitive bid until the numbers come in. And I just,
Well,
I feel
now the
like,
problem you have is that, it's all public as far as the bid goes, so it wouldn't be very hard for anybody else to.
well, but that's just one of the, he does not have to maintain. He can tell us, no, he is not going to maintain his pricing on Group 2.
Which
That is
costs
his
us more.
option. That is an option for him.
Sure.
Which is perfectly fine. But then you put it back out, if he doesn't want to do it and we choose to, we can put it back out for competitive bidding. If we had wanted to do this type of work as a separate road contract with one contractor, then we should have bid it that way from the onset. That's just, and then you would have gotten probably the best pricing, period, because you have less mobilization, all the other expenses that go along with. We could have had somebody that decided, oh, they're going to do 20 miles, well, we may set up a temporary plant in, one of the other contractors in Leavenworth County so that it costs less money to do this for us. I mean, there's all kinds of things that could happen if we had bid the entire project that way. We did not. We chose not to. And at the time, if I recall watching videos, part of the reason for that decision was to make it competitive for each road, giving an opportunity for different contractors to bid the work, which is what we did for the first three. And Bettis came in under McEnany on Group 3, am I correct?
They came in under McEnany on Group 3, but not under McEnany's bids for Group 2.
Right, but it was,
For all
and it
road
just depends on
projects.
it depends on how a contractor puts together their bid pricing, where they put individual costs. I mean, it's not, you can't
So, Lauren-
compare one.
So you're more familiar with what the bids were. So Bettis may have beat McEnany on Group 3.
Yes.
But we're still saying per unit or per mile, or use whatever metric you'd like. The Group 2 pricing from McEnany was the best we had as far as any of the groups go.
Yes, across the board, Group 2 pricing was the best pricing that we received last year. McEnany had also won Group 7 whenever we opened up Group 7. Bettis, Lexico, and McEnany were all considered. McEnany won that one with a different bid price. That is not the bid price. They agreed to honor bid price 2, Group 2, which was the lowest across the board, which is why we did bring it to you as an option for the board.
And I get your point. I mean, we were bidding them in the groups the way that we did also because of when they were available, meaning when the work was completed, when we could actually package up the
But
requirements and get them to
the plans for this aren't even ready yet, and we're offering to do this. And I'm looking at what the contingency is on this job that was presented to us, which exceeds the amount in savings that, potentially, with any kind of changes that were requested by the county or however it might happen. It's just, I think competitive bidding is the way that we should go when we are going to put out projects for work. We did not do it that way. We may have had better pricing from Bettis, on any of the projects, especially those that do asphalt as a general rule, we may have received bids at a different time of the year than when we did. We may have received more bids
Sure.
from other contractors who are not tied up with work on hand. I think
Well,
that
but
probably
that-
the people that didn't start in October were very thankful that they got delayed because,
Well, I think we're not, because we expect
Right.
everything we do next year to cost more than it did this year. And here we're taking a group that gave us pricing for 6 miles, which is not a mile, but 6 miles. It was the cheapest of any contractors that we got bids from. And they said in order to keep that pricing in place, which we all thought was most favorable to the county, if we were able to award them the additional groups, they
Correct.
would keep that pricing in place.
Yes.
And so I think that also, the conversation we had was, how many notices did we mail or send to the 13-plus miles of projects we committed to in 2019 that we didn't complete? Was it over 100
I want to say 80, 60.
or
somewhere.
close to 100?
Yes.
Okay.
I got more phone calls than that.
Right? Yeah, 3 phone calls per.
for how?
And so the other conversation we had was, does this allow us to get those jobs on the books, completed, basically mitigate any risk to 2020 because of all the risk we created in 2019? And so if there was if there was a possibility of packaging up 13 miles and putting that out to bid across all the contractors, keeping in mind that the one that was, I'll give them credit, most creative, because they came to us
I don't
with
think
this.
that's creative, that's self-serving.
I think it's creative. They've now exposed their pricing.
Their pricing was exposed of competitive, when the bids were open.
So, I have a question.
When the bids were open, they're public, they're public. Anybody can go see exactly what their pricing was. All they have to do is ask for an open record request, ask for the records of what was the pricing.
Upon completion, you can't be the last contractor to submit and go look at what the other 6 submitted. That's not how it works.
Right, but when they're open, and those bids were open, when they made that offer, they put out to the public, whoever it was, they put out to the public what their numbers were, whether it's a competitor or whether it's an individual living in the communities, they put their numbers out there for public to look at.
So I'll go back to my question. So if let's say there was a possibility of somebody bidding 13 miles for less than what we received as the lowest bid for 6 miles. How long would it take us to package that up and put it out to bid? And what type of risk would we be putting on the projects we already committed to that we didn't complete in 2019?
In doing that, we would also be putting out Group 2. It would not be 13 miles, it would be another 20.
Now we're 20 miles.
22 miles, roughly. We could package those in whatever way we so choose. But the bid process is usually 30 days. It would take a couple days to get things coordinated. We are still working on the utility coordination. The plans, I believe I've received, are now finalized, but they're still working on utility coordination. Schlegel is the designer. And so it would be roughly probably 45 days to get that back out. And as far as what the prices would come in, the Overland Park pricing is the only one that we can come to. Although it is a shorter distance, it is the only thing comparable in the Kansas City metro area that has been bid recently to get any idea of what bid prices would look like today.
So the earliest we'd be able to package this up to get bids would be middle of February?
Probably early February.
Okay. And then how long would it take for us to have the bids back?
It's usually a 30-day bid process.
Okay. So now we're in March.
Which is when that type of work would begin anyway.
Well, or my argument would be if you were to approve this contractor, it's already on their books and we're the first projects out of the gate, beginning of the year.
That's if they don't already have work on hand on their books that they were going to be completing next year anyway.
I understand.
So-
There's a lot of
So
variables.
there's a lot of variables. I still stand by competitive bidding is the way that we should be going when that is the policy and when that is, the law says that this type of work is supposed to be bid competitively. And that is not competitive bidding.
Unless you're a water district.
Well, yeah, unless you're a water district, and I don't want to be,
I have a couple questions
Wanna be like the water district.
on this. First of all, just put it out there, I do think our regular procedure and our standard practice is competitive bids, correct? Is that correct,
Absolutely.
Mr. County Administrator?
Yes.
Kind of the law.
So that is our normal practice. This has been kind of an extraordinary circumstance. And because it is an extraordinary circumstance, my question to you is us adopting and following the proposed procedure that you're proposing here, is it going to save the taxpayers money?
In looking at the pricing that we received from Overland Park, if we were to receive similar bids right now, yes, it would save the
Or
taxpayers
you
money.
can
But
look
that's
at
it.
pricing.
And
To
that,
extend the
no,
that's
that
not fair,
is the
though.
bottom line.
You can look at
to me.
groups 1, 2, and 3, the bids that we received.
Correct.
This was the lowest per unit bid across all contractors, end of story.
I do not believe Group 1 had the bid alternate 2, which
Oh, that's
is
right.
the
It was a different
concrete,
road
the
surface.
cement
That's
treated
right.
base.
So 2 and
So, of 2 and 3, yes.
So because of the
And 7.
circumstances here, which I agree with you, normally competitive bidding is our process, but because of this extraordinary circumstance, in order to save the taxpayers money, I think we should proceed in the manner we have already proceeded.
Where
We
we at
haven't proceeded
already?
in that manner, and I still feel that for the sake of following the law, being transparent, not having any, and we do not know, you cannot demonstrate or prove that it would not be less, because right now, I checked, the cost of the cement material, which is the main ingredient for asphalt, which is the major cost, and what we're talking about here is the lowest that it has been since April of 2019.
I'm going by what staff, I'm going by what the staff said, that she believes it would save money, and that's what I'm basing the decision on.
But she believes it would save money based on a project that she extrapolated that was a mile long versus a project that is.
Which we've been through that debate.
And that
Yeah,
changes
but I
the
think,
cost.
again, just look at the groups that were bid, throw out the Overland Park bid in a mile. I mean, I don't see how you could argue the fact that there were several contractors that bid groups 2 and 3. This was by far the lowest per unit bid.
And several, meaning 2 and maybe 3, but that does not mean that if you put a job out for bid at the beginning of the year as opposed to the middle of the year, that you will not have more contractors bid the work and have more competitive bidding.
I had a question for Mark and David. Would an explanation of the county's policy on professional services agreement help this situation? Because we're kind of treading on that territory here. You know, when the county goes out for bid for a project and they come up with the cheapest bidder, but that project happens to be an ongoing project or a reoccurring project. Let's take aerial photography for the county, for instance. We fly it once, we go out for bid, 6 bids, take the lowest bid. But we fly every 2 years. So under a professional services agreement, the county can enter into saying, hey, they were the lowest bidder, it's an ongoing project. We can actually just sign a professional services agreement
But
and
that
use the
wasn't-
same bidder
That
for
was
the
not
next
the
couple
way that
projects.
project was bid.
I'm just asking
to
if
begin
that,
with.
yeah, I'm just asking if that kind of explains what could be happening.
Well, I think you have a couple of things. One, because of the way these are bid, they're units, right? They're bid as a unit. Although it's a $3 million project, that $3 million project is made up of units. There's units of concrete, there's units of asphalt, there's units of rock. So you can extrapolate those prices easily. If it wasn't that way, then this would not be a good fit. And I liken this to like when we take bids and we use the state contract for bids. The state goes out early part of the year and bids a lot of services, a lot of product, and then we can throughout the year use that contract to buy off of and not use the competitive bid process because the competitive bid process has been completed once already. That was the approach on this. The competitive bid process was completed. We have the ability to take that unit quantity, that unit pricing, and apply it to these additional projects. And based on the information that we have, and it has been reviewed multiple times by several different people, we believe it represents a cost savings. It was a proposal that McEnany put together. We believe it represents a cost savings. Nobody can say definitively that we wouldn't get better pricing if we went back out for bid.
Right.
But there is the potential that the project would be
Go up
delayed.
also.
Or the price would go up. And I haven't found anybody who will give me a check that I can fill in the number if it does go up to cover that extra amount. Likewise, if it would go down, I haven't had anybody who'd be willing to take a loss on their project or reduce their project if it went down. So that's just the facts of the matter. There's legally, I believe we can do it. I've reviewed it with the county counselor. It's an extension of a contract similar to a change order. It's based on the unit pricing.
Mr. Chairman, if I might answer Commissioner Culbertson's question, because I think it's a very germane issue. In professional services contracts, it's generally modeled on the presumption that the materials costs will be rather inconsequential as compared to the time of, I'll call it
Labor.
the exercise of professional judgment. In construction contracts, it's generally reversed. In this case, you have a situation where several projects were unavoidably delayed. As Mr. Lawfrey outlined to you, there are unit prices. so that this fits more into the category of a contract extension, much like a change order, as opposed to a new contract. At the same time, county policy is strong in advocating for competitive and open bidding, and state law requires it initially on all contracts of this nature. If I could suggest, perhaps the board would view this as the following. This is a departure from your preferred policy, but I believe it is within state law and allowed, but it is a situation that, again, arose out of circumstances that I would suggest are beyond your control, certainly beyond Ms. Anderson's control, and is intended to and will benefit the public. As to whether this should be used as a model for future conduct, I would call that into question.
And where are we at on our days for utilities to be moved on our 120?
The
My
last-
calendar says it's halfway done.
The last update I had was that they were well underway. Hopefully on time or just shortly behind, but they do anticipate a majority of the project, 2, 3, and 7, to be done on time.
And your office is continuing to work on the utility easement policy.
Yes, we are.
Well,
Lauren, was this reviewed by Olson?
Yes, it was.
And what was their recommendation?
This was their recommendation that we go this route. They were the ones that actually identified the project in Overland Park to compare to. And they worked with me to come up
that's
with
not
this.
comparing
proposal.
like jobs.
I don't know. I give them a lot of credit. They already saved us $500,000 that I know of, so,
On Eisenhower?
yeah.
Well, I'm just not willing to, I am not willing to ever not put work out for competitive bidding, because I think that it's important for us to always maintain that level of transparency, and that there never be any appearance that we've done anything that is not following our established policy. That's
And I
just,
think everybody on the board is pretty much in agreement with that, but in this case, like I said, it's sort of like a change order.
well, I don't like change orders either, so.
I know, but it seems like just about every job has one.
Yeah.
Right, well, I can see that they're going to be able to go up to
Yeah, I know.
$333,987.16 worth of change orders, so, based on what we're being asked to approve. And what does that say to us?
Well, I mean, I think we have,
That
10%
contingency would be
contingency in
built into
everything.
any.
Well, I
and all
understand
single
that, but
bid over
I
and
would
above
say
the
that that's going to be,
savings
I
system.
know that, but I'm saying I will tell you that that's going to be used.
Vicki, I think you make great points, but at the same time, I can sit here and feel validated in that we had, several miles of road bid. This was by far the cheapest bid we received across any of the groups, and therefore extrapolating that for 2 more groups, given they were already awarded 2 groups, I would have no issues with. If I didn't have all, if I didn't already have those other
I don't see that as
bids.
asking us any kind of, I think that they're holding their prize. They're not saying, oh, put it back out for bid, because I don't want to do it for that. So,
And the odds of road pricing actually going down, I would say, are very small.
I would agree.
I don't know.
I would
Those
say
type
that
petroleum products. and they seem to
oftentimes
be
when you're
staying.
getting road pricing at that time of year, you're not going to get your best bargain anyway, so.
I'm pretty sure those weren't late in the year bids we accepted.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they were.
Yeah,
I
they were late.
believe the
Summer?
first one was April, then May, then June.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, it's not like it was fall. I mean, these jobs were to be completed
Yeah,
last
but
year.
normally,
It's kind of like E58. I mean, I think we'd look at opportunities there, even if it was necessarily would cost more. I think the argument here, it's going to cost us less,
We
but,
already did.
right.
But
At the end of the day, we've
Yeah,
got,
that's brilliant.
90 parcel owners, give or take, that,
well, you guys,
Okay.
it's up to you. I'm just saying, that I
Right.
will not support non-competitive bidding on
So
contracting, road construction and
I'll consider a
buildings.
motion on this topic.
I mean, I'll move that we not approve The extension of the McEnany dust abatement contract.
I'll make the motion to approve the extension of the McEnany dust abatement contract to include Group 4 and 5.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'd like to say one thing. I do think that we, just to counter what you said, and I agree with it, we put this initially out to public bid, so there's no argument to say that this was not properly and professionally and
Not these two.
operationally the way we do business here. It was put out for public bid. We followed the procedures. The extraordinary circumstances happened. We're now extending the contract. We're completely following what is the law.
Okay, but these two jobs would not have been put out for bid during that time period. They would not, they would have been in next year, this coming up year's stuff to bid on anyway. It's just,
Right now would be a good time.
so
to
the
bid
only,
them.
right, I'm just, I'm not,
December.
We're saving the taxpayers a
Maybe.
significant amount of money.
Potentially.
potentially. Potentially, we could be
Well,
costing them significant amount of
Olson
money.
agrees to it, our staff agrees to it, the
That's
recommendations are.
too many engineers for me to question. so.
Right, I mean,
Oh, well, yeah, let's never question an engineer.
But we've already saved money from them holding to the price they said they would do on the first job. So
Right.
we're
Well,
kind of
Bettis
going,
went up, so
we're kind of
there's-
going
they have
back
a track
on what
record.
we told them if we say no. So we've already saved the taxpayers money by letting them agree to do it
Just
for
on,
the cost that
yeah,
they said.
on one, but not the other. I mean, all right, you know,
Any further discussion, voting?
aye.
Nay.
nay,
Aye.
Commissioners?
And I voted no because, like I said, I think it's, you put 20, 30 miles out for bid, you could have a different price.
absolutely
But at the same time,
Could be worse.
well,
doubtfully.
I want these roads to get done this year because they were put off last year. And I just don't have faith in the utilities being moved in 120 days.
And then the price will go up.
So anyways, now we're on to your next one, Lauren.
Yes, so the second one is the schedule extension, so essentially a contract extension as well, but it does not include any additional miles. So it is just simply the schedule extension for Bettis to complete their Group 3 in the 2020 construction schedule instead of rebidding it this spring.
Any questions or concerns on this particular extension of the contract?
Do we have a choice?
No, I don't think we do.
What is the alternate?
We compared it to the Overland Park project, which is shorter, but they did come in at a significant savings as well.
And again,
Well, at
you
the same
imagine,
time,
crystal
they would
ball.
have completed the work if it wasn't for the utilities,
They were
correct?
ones that had actually personally asked for an extension in the first place.
Okay.
The construction
they
schedule
would-
last year had many
They-
people.
Even if the utilities were out of the way, they couldn't have done the work?
Correct.
But probably the other contractor wouldn't have been able to either because of all of the
Yeah,
They were
situations.
ready, they were mobilized, and unfortunately, they had to
Pull off.
demobilize.
One,
Change order.
yep.
So really, we're just betting on if prices go up. So this would lock us in if prices
This
go.
would lock us in at the price that they bid last year.
So what
for
are
this
the
project.
odds? The odds are it's going to go up. So
It has gone up in comparison to the only project that we have found, but it was a shorter project.
Okay.
So I make a motion. You ready for a motion?
Yes, sir.
Approved schedule extension of Bettis dust abatement contract to continue through 2020 construction season.
Second.
And your motion would be to have them completed in 2020?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is the
I thought
plan.
it doesn't say that,
Because
does
we
it?
don't want to go into 21.
Yeah, completed in
Okay.
2020.
So a motion and a second, any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 Thank you, commissioners. Have a good day.
All right,
Thank
thank
you,
you,
Lauren.
Lauren.
Thanks, Lauren.
We are ready for planning and zoning.
Sit down.
They're low bid.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Good morning.
I have before you two requests. The first is for a special use permit for the Reese Big landfill. We are requesting approval of Resolution 2019-30, which, like I said, is a request for renewal of the Reese Big landfill. It has been in operation for over a decade. We are recommending approval for 10 years. Mr. Cos is here. Mr. Cos had requested that the TIF be waived on this because it's on a state highway. He did petition the Planning Commission. They recommended that the Board of County Commissioners deal with that. As you are all aware, we are working on a new traffic impact fee policy. He has not previously paid it, so I will let him make the official request, but
Okay,
it will be.
so we can go ahead and just open up public hearing then on this?
Yes.
Okay. I'll move that we open up the public hearing on the special use permit for the Risbig rubble landfill.
Second.
Well, we just slide in. All right, anyone here in favor of the special use permit?
Greg Haas, Lexico, 5037 South 4th Street, Leavenworth, Kansas. This has been in existence for 10 years. The only change that I'm asking, they added on the TIF fee. This is off 92 Highway, just across from the Compton Road. All the trash, or everything, I don't want to say trash, all the material, the rock, concrete, asphalt, dirt, is coming from Leavenworth or Fort Leavenworth. So it's coming up 92 Highway. So we are not using any county roads to access this at all. So therefore, I'm asking that the TIF fee be waived on it, and we've not paid that in the past. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I don't have any. You know where I stand on state highway collecting the fees.
I actually only had one, and I think that's a very valid point, was just the designation of only employees. So is this private? Like, I'm not very familiar with the site, so.
It's at her house, Carol Reisbig's house.
Okay.
And you have to go down her driveway to be able to dump there. And she's a bulldog. If she sees somebody out there that she doesn't recognize the truck, she's out there saying, who are you, who are you hauling for? In addition to that, we've got cameras out there that we take pictures of the vehicles that enter and leave. So it is set up to where we can control what goes in there, and not
Okay.
just anybody drive by can go dump, and we don't know what's in it.
Yeah, I didn't know the difference of public versus private. I mean, generally speaking, when I'm thinking of a landfill or dump, it's accessible by others, where this seemed to be
This is not
specific to.
accessible by others.
Right, just the company, okay.
Yeah, Lexico is the only one that can dump there.
Gotcha. And I'm assuming we haven't had any.
Nope.
I've never heard anybody complain about it.
Not a word.
Didn't
Okay.
even know it was there. So,
Question on the TIF fee for planning and zoning. We handle a lot of things, a lot of developers and industries. Walk me through what the reasoning is as far as you're concerned about the TIF fee.
I think that's just policy currently,
Yeah, I
right?
mean,
Right.
yeah, I
We're going
mean-
by the current formula that
Yeah.
we've been
Right.
questioning and want to.
Correct, yeah.
Formally
So the
revised,
current
right.
policy is that we assess a TIF fee on all special use permits. So it's not up to me to waive it, which I had spoken with Mr. Cos when he asked about it. I explained that to him, told him he would need to petition the board, which is.
That's why I didn't push it with the planning commission. Mr. Van Paris, after looking at him,
Bring it
he
up
says,
here.
well, county commission's the one that has to waive it, so there was no need in it really even being discussed at the
Okay.
planning commission level.
I think we're still trying to work out the exact ideology behind the TIF fees.
Yeah.
This is kind of a unique situation, I feel. I know Doug's reasoning is if it's on a state highway, it's not a county road, why are we collecting TIF fees? But I also feel like you had to get there from county roads, if it's a regular type of permit on a state highway. You use county roads to get to that point. You didn't drive only on state highways. What makes this unique is it is a private refuse dump, and like Greg pointed out, they control where the traffic comes from, and this one particularly falls onto, Doug's reasoning. They're only on state highway, so although I usually am for the TIF fees, even if it's on a state highway, I think this one's kind of unique, so I'm,
And it's not been assessed in prior, the fact that it's been there for a decade, right?
This will be the second renewal. So the first one was 5 years, the second one was 5 years.
This should be for 10, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Mark, do you have any comments on the TIF fee?
Well, I think, like Ms. Voth said, we are in the process of reviewing TIF fees right now and the process of how they're applied. I don't know if they've ever paid a TIF on this with the original application or ever. So that might play into what my recommendation would be. I don't think there was ever an intention that TIF fees be collected multiple times
Right.
on projects like this, that they pay at one time when they open the business and then.
I was going to bring that up, but
So-
they didn't pay it once yet.
Right, so I think that
I
would
couldn't
probably
use that.
change my opinion a little bit in that they've never paid one. I don't think, I think I've said this before, I don't believe that because they're on a county road, it waives the TIF fees because they are using county roads at some point. However, this is an existing business in the county, it's not a business outside the county. So while the traffic is different, it's still traffic that they've already generated. His vehicles are coming from his location. So I don't see that this is creating additional traffic, it's just a route that they happen to be using. So, one, we're going to be evaluating TIF fees, and I would guess once that process is done, renewals of SUPs would not require a TIF fee. So with that, I would say waive the fee. Two, existing business in the county, not creating additional traffic, it just happens to be a certain route that his vehicles are going down, so waive the fee. If those two things weren't true already, I would probably say you'd have to charge him the fee because he's never paid one. But because those other two are true, I think it would be reasonable to waive the fee.
Thank you.
Okay, all
Well said.
right. Any more questions of Greg?
No, but just out of an abundance of caution, I won't vote on this.
Understand. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this special use permit? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of this special use permit? Seeing none, we'll close public hearing and return to regular session. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-30 for a special use permit for the Rice Big Clean Rebel landfill.
Second.
You do,
And
one second, you do need to make,
Oh,
in that
okay.
motion, waive the fees.
And waive.
that's why I was going to ask, do we need a separate motion for the TIF
It's
fees?
part of the motion, Commissioner.
Okay, and also waive the TIF fee for such.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
The only thing I would just say as discussion is we need to get it nailed down on this TIF fee, that we do it the same for everybody. So-
That's why
I agree.
I said what I said.
Everybody on a state highway shouldn't pay it.
Well, however we decide the policy's gonna be, that's what we ought to follow for everybody.
Okay.
No, agreed.
So,
Voting?
aye.
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 Abstain?
Aye.
All right. Next one?
This second is a request for rezoning from RR5 to RR 2.5. This parcel of land has been before the board before. It is located at 22525 155th Street. About a month and a half ago, we came before you to request that they be able to submit this application, though the year had not been passed, which this board agreed to allow them to do that. So this was brought back before the Planning Commission last month. The Planning Commission recommended 8-1 to deny this request to rezone the parcel of land from RR5 to RR 2.5. The reasons given were that the proposed rezoning does not conform to the current comprehensive plan. The proposed rezoning will be detrimental to the area, and as stated in the golden factors, I believe the applicant is here, will answer any questions that you may have, as will I.
I had a question for you on that. On the proposed rezoning would be detrimental to the area. What was the planning commission's thinking on that, or what, did they elaborate?
That was the motion that was given, just,
You were at the meeting, and I didn't have a chance to watch it on the video. there any, can you elaborate any further?
I'd hesitate to do that, but I don't want to put words in somebody's mouth. Like I said, his motion was specifically that it does not meet the current comprehensive plan. It will be detrimental to the area and as the golden factors, which were stated. So
Okay. Any specific golden factors?
just said the golden factors.
Because I thought we had discussed at our work sessions that they were going to be more specific in their motion.
Should be. Not were to be, it should be.
Yeah.
Not, we can't be that prescriptive, I mean.
Well, but I mean, I thought that was, they were going to, I thought they even had proposed motions.
It would
that they
help.
were gonna use.
It would help.
Well, they did use the proposed motion, and I believe the commissioner felt he was being specific by stating those three things.
Okay, it still leaves us with kind of question marks.
Chris, those seem kind of unique to me in that there wasn't a staff component or recommendation.
Correct.
Is there any reason for that, or?
Commissioner Shemke, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I was contacted by Ms. Voth with respect to this proposal. In the past, Planning Commission has made specific recommendations either for approval or denial. What I suggested to Ms. Voth for this particular case, and I'll give the reasons shortly, is that the action requested be that you make a consideration of it. And the justification in my mind for that suggestion was the county's undertaking, as we speak, a revision and updating of your comprehensive plan. The issue of how strictly to apply the limits of, say, the difference between R5 and R2.5 is currently a matter, I believe, under consideration by this board. So inasmuch as there are two policy factors that stand out there that are being considered for significant change, while this goes through the process, I suggested that Ms. Voth be straightforward and just say this matter needs to be considered by the board. Whether it's approved or not is certainly, I think at this point in time, a policy decision to be made by the board. Your current policy would lead inevitably, because the way the policy is written, for a recommendation of denial. That's just the way the policy is written. Your staff is charged with understanding policy, applying policy, and making suggested changes to policy. I believe there are possible suggested changes to policy that are being considered by this board and have been considered by this board on this issue. And consequently, I advised Ms. Voth that rather than give a specific up or down, thumbs up, thumbs down, like in a Roman Colosseum type setting, that she simply asked that you consider it. The issue at hand is, should the rezoning from 5 acres to 2.5 be applied in this instance? But more broadly, should it be considered on a more liberal application throughout the county? And I think those are things that your comprehensive plan will eventually address, and that your revision of your policies will eventually address. But in the interim, we're, put it mildly, in a rather fluid situation, a state of flux, as you will. And I suggested to Ms. Voth that she make that clear to this board by saying that she just asked that you consider it and apply your interpretation of the policy, or if you wish to, in the interim of any permanent change to the policy, deviate from that policy, you have that prerogative that you exercise it.
And was the city of Basehor notified on this?
This is not within their urban growth management area. Previously, when this application came before the planning department a year and a half ago, we had recommended that they reach out to the city of Basehor, and which I believe they did. The city told them that sanitary sewer was not available, would not be available in the near future. However, because this, like I said, it's not in the urban growth management area, we did not send it over for further comment, given, again, that we had had a previous conversation about that.
Okay. Now, can the property owner voluntarily annex into the city and then run the sewer out there at their expense?
Commissioners, without answer, I'd have to look into the specifics, but in this case, I believe it'd probably be considered an island annexation. Given the size of the tract, it'd probably, I'm just saying, probably come before you for
Okay.
permission to.
So it would have to come before us.
It's non-contiguous, it's
Okay.
a sufficient size. Given its current use, I think it would have to come before you.
Okay.
I think the
And
Just make clear, I
then,
follow policy.
the one we just approved in the consent agenda referenced agriculture preserve, that particular subdivision was in the agriculture preserve, but it was approved at 2.5 acres. But, okay.
The zoning district there is the 2.5 acre zoning district.
Okay. What else?
There wasn't a large density type, I mean, expanded density in that either.
No,
That
it's
was
not.
too-
Oh,
right,
I
it
like
was
the 2.5
not-
acres, but I like this 2.5 acres, that BOCC plat.
Right.
You know, I think that's a really good use of the ground, and it preserves the agriculture behind it.
Should,
That's-
I know we've got some people here that probably want to.
We're gonna open up a public hearing.
comment before we.
So we'll open up
Too much
public hearing on this rezone. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the zoning change? Yes, sir.
Of course you do.
Could you state your name, please?
Morning, Commissioners. Joe Herring, Herring Surveying, 315 North Fifth Street.
Morning.
Appreciate being back up here again. Crystal was right in stating, it went back and went with an 8-1 negative vote at the Planning Commission. And during that Planning Commission meeting, we had answered a lot of questions that concerns came up from the property owners, concerning the ground was never offered to them or was for sale, it was on the market. And they kept talking about 150 homes. And our clients do not want 150 homes on this site. It was offered by the city to run sewer out to it, but they had to build the high-density houses. The clients denied that, and Mr. Bonet is here and can answer any questions with regards to that, because they didn't want 3 units per acre. They don't want 2 units per acre. They want a rural estate living area with 20, 22 homes in it. There was drainage concerns, and I understand those concerns here. But during the process of a subdivision, for those that don't know, a detention and drainage study has to be performed, and then silt fence and all that would have to be in place, and those structures would have to be fixed during that process. During the meeting, staff took out the original denial, the main reason for denial, one of the main reasons, which is spot zoning. They took that out of the report. But during the Planning Commission meeting, the chairman kept calling it spot zoning. And I just want to clarify that this is contiguous to 2.5 acres directly east of it. It is not spot zoning. So that was being discussed, which was kind of, baffled me why they kept calling it that, but they did. The main reason for denial, as Crystal said, was it doesn't match our current comp plan. We've been over this, we've talked about it in work sessions, talked about it in the new comp plan. It's 10 years old. It's over 10 years old. Hasn't been updated in over 10 years. There are cases out there that say that if you haven't updated your comp plan, it's obsolete, it's invalid. So we keep basing it off of that on a comp plan, which, commissioners have said zoning should be like on both sides of the road. This doesn't have it. So that seems to be a safety fallback when I understand why staff didn't make a suggestion, but it definitely didn't give the Planning Commission direction on what they could do, and they definitely struggled with that during that process. The future plan on the old comp plan is ag preserve.
Agricultural
And
preserve.
we've talked about it through the meetings. 5-acre zoning is not a true ag preserve. The detriment to the neighborhood, I struggle with that one, because during the meeting, I don't recall them really talking about being a detriment. It only came up at the motion time. I don't see how it is a detriment, how it could be a detriment. It's a collector road. It meets the access management policy. It can handle the traffic. You have Saddle Creek within this 160 acres, or 640 acres. Most of the parcels within the section are 2.5 acre parcels. So I don't see how it can be a detriment. It's on a main road going into a city. That's where you want this development. Access management policy wants this type of development there. So I didn't understand that, so.
But I want that type of development that's within that distance of a city to follow the city, even if they haven't expressed, I mean, that they need to put in roads that meet the standards of the city. If you're going to use that as an example, that there needs to be everything about it needs to tie directly into future expansion as part of the city.
So would that be addressed at the plat? This wouldn't be addressed at zoning,
The
would
type
it?
of the road, that would be addressed in the platting process.
But that's just not, but they
Right,
haven't,
and
they
it's
can't
not in the
request
growth
that, so we
district of
can't
the
make
city of
them.
Baser, so
Baser? City of Baser
See,
would be notified on a plat,
it's not in
wouldn't
their
it?
growth district.
No, it's not in their growth district.
Across the
That's my
street.
point.
But I guarantee you, they won't hear about it.
Across the streets in the growth district. So anything across the street would be Baser would have,
Correct. And
be able to make recommendations.
And we do make it a
Okay.
practice, like I said, to give Baser a call and talk with them about it and see, you know, do you have?
It's just a recommendation. It's not
Correct.
that they
Correct.
can tell the rural residents what to do.
But right now, our policy is there's 5 in that specific area, correct?
I'm sorry, Sam.
Our policy at this point in time is 5 acres for that.
Correct, the current
that
zoning
property.
district.
On that
Zoning,
side of the road.
On that side of the road.
Side,
The other
Well,
side
you
of
have
the
to-
road is 2.5,
2.5.
Well, there's always going to be something different on the other side of the road. I mean,
like on 4th Street.
I'm just,
We're not
Grass
asking
is
you
always
to go against
greener.
policy. Your zone is 2.5, it's not a policy. We're not asking you to go against a policy because it's adjacent to. You're allowed to rezone property if it's contiguous and adjacent to like zoning.
okay, but my
So
question
there's
is,
a policy question.
okay, my question though still remains, is there a willingness on the part of the developer to maintain what Baser is doing? I mean, it needs to me, if it's going to be, if we're going to say it's right across the road from what Baser is, it's right across the road from these things, that they need to be working in partnership with Baser to make sure that for future growth, it does meet those standards that they have in place, so that there can be, things are done in a way that they can tie in appropriately to,
Baser's growth district is across the street. Baser
Right.
tried to expand their growth district. It got shot down.
Right.
They didn't get to expand it. So they're not in their growth district. There's no plan for them to be in their growth district, as far as I know. And they're in the county. This is a county
Well,
decision.
and this
Right.
conversation's come up a few times too, is that, again, anybody that would potentially, buy one of these homes, for example, has to realize that that growth district is across the street and you're susceptible to being annexed into it, right? We've had a lot of those conversations.
Right, that's what I'm-
Eventually, if they get brought into the city,
They
I
get
don't know
to-
if you've driven in some of the streets in Baser, there's no curb and gutter on them. They're chip and seal ditches, and they're very narrow. During this process and through the review of the plans, I guarantee you, the road's gonna be at least 24 feet wide, potentially asphalt, and it'll be a nice
potential.
development. I don't see how it can be a detriment when you have the Saddle Creeks, the Woodruff Estate, the High Prairie Points. None of these 2.5 acre subdivisions are blighted subdivisions, are detriments to our county. They all pay their taxes, and nobody has shown me a formula where these developments cost the county a dime.
So right now, Joe, this developer could build 10 or 11 with no input from, obviously, this board or residents or
Right.
anybody else.
Yeah,
Just
they
going
can,
through the
other than the
planning
planning
process and making sure that you meet KDHE as well as safety and retention ponds and anything else that would go along with it. So, like I said, I want to hear from everybody before weighing in, but I just want to make sure that that was said, that right now it could be 10 or 11.
It
What
could
we're
be
talking
10 or
about is
11.
20 or 22.
It'd be 2022, and with current mill levy, I think it was calculated with $400,000 homes in there, you're talking in excess of $100,000 in tax revenue per year, or 50 if you go with 5 acres. I mean, there is a
I
good-
have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
You attended the charrette and saw the map that
Absolutely.
they're developing for the proposed comprehensive plan.
Yes.
We don't know what the final plan will contain, of course, but on the map at the charrette, it indicated that this area would be zone 2.5. Is that your understanding?
In looking at that map, it's hard to, I took a picture of it, of course. And of course, it's just a preliminary, but you can't really see the streets behind it. And it's right between the 2.5 to the R3DU or RD3, which is high density, 3 units per acre, which would be the 150 homes that have been brought up. If it does get a comp plan of that, that would be available. But that is not what my clients want. They do not want to see that many homes there.
So, but at the very least, that what we're looking at looks like at the very least it'll be 2.5.
It was projected to be 2.5 acres because it's on the edge of the outer edge of where Basic can grow without 3 pump stations to get sewer to it. I think it was 3 pump stations.
So really, this board is just being asked to, instead of waiting till March or April or May when the comp plan is done, you're basically asking the board to go ahead and say, in this area, we're gonna go ahead and approve this as what the comp plan potentially would be doing anyway.
That's a great way to put it.
And a second question is, if we do not approve this, will this cause your client or developer to not be able to construct during the next building season?
No, if you're talking about if this was tabled until the comp plan.
Right.
When and if that future comp plan is approved, absolutely. I mean, they missed the last building season. We missed probably, I think, the one before that, potentially in 2018. So 2020 building would most likely not happen. But that is
Should we
a
encourage
definitely downside of
purchasing property?
purchasing property. Purchase property and hope that you can develop it. And when you're contiguous and adjacent to like zoning, you anticipate that you're going to get that rezone.
Is that a smart anticipation?
It's a smart anticipation?
Is it?
I would think it is.
So far, it hasn't seemed to have been a
But
very
since I'm the
good
one that
thing.
advised them to make that smart anticipation, questioning if I'm smart or not. So I'm not going to answer that fully right now. So
Jury's still out.
the jury is still out.
I'll answer that question for you.
We're going to
What-
not defer to senior counsel on this.
Like I said, I know we're asking a lot of questions that are pertaining to the plating process more than we are the zoning.
Right.
I
Right, but
think we are. And with that, I mean, would this, you mentioned Saddle Creek, would this ever line up with Saddle Creek?
It is.
Or can it?
The south line of this plat, or this rezone, is the north line of Saddle Creek, and there's a space between it. There's a property between it. There is the option of connectivity to happen. Saddle Creek is built out to the farthest east.
Mm-hmm.
This potentially will have to have a build-out road to the west or to the south for future development, because all this ground would be developed at some point in the future.
So the difference in the two, I mean, if we approve this, we're approving 22 instead of 11 homes.
Right, you're allowing for up to 22 homes instead of keeping it farm ground.
So basically an additional 11 homes.
But we're also opening the door, or continuing to open the door. I'm just putting out there to ignoring the comprehensive plan and how it has been laid out for future growth, whether this a 10-year-old one or the new one that is adopted, that we're opening the door and setting a precedence that says, oh, 2.55, 10, whatever. If you come in and you buy a piece of property and you change your mind, zoning really doesn't, it's just a matter of the whim of,
Well, we
commission.
had one earlier that got pulled off, that somebody bought 2 lots. Is that correct? Somebody bought 2 5-acre tracts? Is that what it was?
I believe they're 2.5 acre tracts, I
Okay,
think, but yes, there's,
Okay, they bought 2, and now they want to combine, because they want to build an outbuilding.
yeah, I don't believe they realized it was 2 tracts, 2 platted lots.
Yeah.
buyer beware.
But if the new comprehensive plan is gonna do 2.5, then
But that's it.
why would we, just because of time, just as a matter of time, delay this?
Because of policy. Just like I
Well-
did before, policy, that's why. I mean,
Well, but we don't always follow policy because we don't always follow what staff says. We've
make
had that happen
policy.
before.
I try to follow
Didn't we just go
policy.
against policy with waiving a roof?
If.
Yeah.
Well,
I didn't vote.
So that's your decision. That's why you're elected officials up here to do that policy.
And I honestly have a hard time figuring out why we're having such a hard time with this. And it amazes me that it was called spot zoning to begin with, just because of the existing comp plan. That's almost 20 years old, by the way.
Yeah.
That's 18 years old. What it boils down to is this fits a scenario of falling through the gray area that our existing comp plan created by a mistake. I'm going to call it a mistake. It's not really a mistake, but I'm going to make sure that the new comp plan doesn't have this same mistake in it, where you basically boil all the surveys down and all the engineering ideas and all the opinions of the public that we've had in these charrettes. And what it really boils down to is the company that's doing the new comp plan is going to sit down with the cartographer that does the actual drawing of the map and put those ideas down on paper with a pen. They don't use a pen anymore, but you know what I mean. And he's going to use in the past comprehensive plan that we have now existing, they used the simplest cadastral line to follow. That was the center line of the streets. I'm going to make sure that the new comp plan does not use the center line of streets to separate zoning. That makes no sense. If you look at the actual existing zoning maps for City of Leavenworth, for example, you go down 4th Street, it does not have residential on one side of 4th Street and commercial on the other side. You go one tier deep on both sides of the street. This parcel is right across the street from 2.5 acres. If you drew the new comp plan the way it should be drawn, you will go one tier deep on both sides of the street. You will not have one zoning on one side of the street and a different zoning on the other side of the street. I honestly don't know why we're having such a hard time with this. It's not spot zoning. It's right across the street from 2.5 acres. It's one tier deep on both sides of the street. Would have been 2.5 acres if they would have drawn it the way they should have drawn it. So it's, I think, up to us to interpret that the comp plan that we have that separates the 2.5 from the 5 down the center line of the street is just a general idea. So they wanted 2.5 acres to go to that specific area. You go one tier deep on the other side of the street too. That's just how it works. Just because of black and white lines on this existing 18-year-old comp plan, we're hung up on, is this spot zoning or not? So we're going to say no to $8 million of ad valorem appraised value because it's right across the street from a 2.5 acre zone. That makes no sense to me.
Mr. Van Perry?
Well, I'm going to play referee here for a little bit. You're in the public hearing portion of this, of the deliberation on this matter. So you will more properly, as we're, have discussion regarding the policy issues after you close the public hearing.
Okay,
Because as of right now, evidence is out there.
okay.
So I would suggest you conduct the public hearing and close the public hearing and then proceed.
Okay. You have anything else?
A couple more things.
All right.
I've attended almost every work session with this board, with the planning commission, with the planning and zoning department. It has been very clear to me that development, and 2.5 acre development, has been discussed a lot and favored in those discussions. That is why I assume you guys send it back to the planning commission to have it back in front of you. Mr. Bonet is here to answer any questions, and if there are any additional concerns brought up by the neighbors, which I expect so, and appreciate their statements, we'd like the ability to address them if need be.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else in favor of this rezone? Then I'll go to opposition. Anyone in opposition of this rezoning?
Good morning.
Hi.
Morning.
Diane Sturp, 22341 155th Street. We're voicing our opposition to this proposed rezoning. This will have an impact on the wildlife. Many of us are on well water. We like our well water. We have learned that some banks are not writing loans for home mortgages if the residence is on well water, and they are located within an area where they can hook up to city water. We do not want to hook up to city water and do not want to be forced to hook up to city water. The owners of Eagles Crossing are not taking care of their property. Our property is adjacent to theirs. We sent Dan Lynch and John Bonet a certified letter on June 4th, politely asking them to take care of the problem. We didn't get a response from either of them. On June 23rd, Dave had to walk in the water muck and clear the pipe on their property so the water could flow from their property and free our pipe so it would quit, hopefully, eroding our dam. On the 26th of June, Dave called Dan about the problem, and Dan said that's John's responsibility. Dan Lynch and John Bonet are not responsible property owners. As of today, the problem has not been repaired. This issue alone should deny them the rezoning request, as they have proved they are not responsible property owners. Another concern over the housing development is our shared pond. This is a deep pond. As proven above, they are irresponsible property owners. If a housing development is allowed, they have proven they will not be able to keep children from trespassing on our property, going to the pond and getting hurt or even drowning. We would then be sued. We strongly urge you not to reward irresponsible property owners with the request for rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in opposition of this rezone?
Dave Strick, 22341 155th Street, and our property bounds at 56 acres. We're on the south side of it. And I'm against it. I wouldn't like to see that go in. And the first thing I think of is when the buyers bought the property, they knew then it was zoned for 5 acres. They knew that. And I've talked to Dan Lynch, and he said that he can make money by developing it at 5 acres, 10 to 11 homes. They say they want to keep it, in a rural atmosphere, Well, I would think it would be more of a rural atmosphere developed on 5 acres than it would 2.5. So I just don't understand why, he said they can make money on developing the way it is now, 5 acres. Why not just, develop it that way? Thank you.
I had a question for you, Nick, and maybe it's for your wife, but you alluded to not taking care of the property. What I didn't follow that. What's that about?
Oh,
Could you explain that to me a little more?
There's a dam. It's like I guess you'd say a shared dam between our property and their property.
Okay.
And the previous owner, Howard Thino, the pipe, the spillway that goes through the dam, he always kept that clean, It was on his side, when you get heavy rains, like we had all that rain, like the winter of 2018, 2019, and all that rain we had in 2018, and it caused that pipe to block up. And then with that pipe blocked up, it just eroded a big old hole on the north side of that dam now. That's kind of threatening the integrity of that dam, and that's the only way we have to get back, like, to the west portion of our property. And so they didn't just keep the pipe,
Is the pipe working now?
Well, yeah, but the water's down so low, we haven't had no rain, there's really no water going.
But it has been repaired now?
No, it hasn't been repaired. There's still a hole there. There's still a hole there. I asked Mr. Bonet at the last meeting if he'd, go back and take a look at it. I don't know if he did.
And what about the issue with the children trespassing?
Oh, well, yeah. There's a pond there to the south of the property, and it's on our property. It's a pond that's shared 3 ways, and yeah, we're just concerned, you get a bunch of homes in there, you know there's gonna be kids. And you know, kids are drawn to water. You know, how's that gonna be policed? Keep them away from that pond?
Is the 2.5 acre zone across the street from you
Yeah,
now?
zone 2.5 across the street.
So right across the street from you is 2.5
But
acres?
there's no homes over there, that's all vacant.
Okay, but it's zoned 2.5?
Yes, it's 2.5, yes, 2.5. I don't see how though that makes it okay to zone on the west side of the street, you know, just automatically make it 2.5. He mentioned that Saddle Creek bounds this property, which it does, but the majority of the property on the south side of that property, it's owned by us and Bob Rich and John Sonka, you know, and they're not even here. I mean, you keep bringing this, up, for vote or whatever you want to call it. And as property owners, we can't, like I had to take off work today to attend to this. We can't just keep coming up here every time, you know. They're gonna keep doing this and keep doing this until, you're gonna eventually say, okay, let's make it 2.5. In fact, I only see 3 of us in here. Four property owners in here, and there's a lot more that affects that. And, you keep having these meetings, and we just can't take off work, to voice our opposition to this.
So the pond dam that you drive across, it's shared?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right on the property line.
It's right on the property
Yeah.
line.
But the former owner, he always kept it clear.
Is there anything to keep them from draining the pond and taking that out, or you have any?
Well,
Is there just
no,
an
not really,
agreement?
because it's there for erosion control.
Right.
That's why it's there. I mean, you have to reshape the ground, like to move it.
Right. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in opposition of this rezone?
Morning.
Morning.
Trent Peter, 15805 Fairmount Road, Baser. Our house is probably the closest house affected because our house is off Fairmount, but it sticks behind, and it's literally within walking distance to the property affected. So it's been a very big concern. At first, it was really frustrating. Now it's just sad. And like you said, we've been to so many of these darn meetings. It's like the first meeting was really well attended, and then there's only 4 or 5 of us. And it is what it is. And first, I want to say I'm not against development. I work in the business industry. I think it's great. I love the county, and it's a good opportunity when the correct development happens at the right time for the right reason. And then secondly, I think 3 of the 5 county commissioners, if I'm not correct, have already denied this last February, right? And that could be incorrect. I know when it was denied, 3 of the 5 already did it. So it's like now it's brought up again. So the other thing I just want to bring attention, I know a number of people with 5-acre plots, 3 to 7-acre plots, they're selling like hotcakes in Leavenworth County. It's a hot demand. I know for a fact people that have sold within 8 hours with 5 acres, so it's not like that can't be done. Having said that, I get the 11 to 22. It gets me, given the comprehensive plan, I brought this up to the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's like, I understand this might be 2.5. We don't know yet in March. So if we don't know, why would we do it, right? So why not wait until we actually know what it looks like to get this done? Because if 2.5 acres as is what it is, or what it should be for the county, so should my property right across the, within walking distance. And that's my biggest frustration. If this gets 2.5 and mine's 5, it's like, okay, and you can say all you want, that Saddlemont, I believe, or Cattlemont Road down there, Saddle Creek, most people do determine that spot zoning, and we're comparing that a lot to this. So, a couple other little things that I'd like to bring attention: safety on 155th and Fairmount. I'm not sure why it's not done yet, but I think 155th needs some road bumps, and then a flashing stop sign with the solar power. I've noticed a number of accidents there as a fatality. If the next one's my kid when I'm driving on Fairmount, it's going to be really disheartening that that's not done yet. So I would encourage, and I'd be happy to take back whoever I can contact to get something like that implemented, because it can't cost very much and it could save some lives. A couple other little things: we do have a pond, and I've met with Kansas Forestry out on our property, because the way the land slopes, it all drains to our pond. So I don't want it to erode away or silt to fill it in and be stuck with that burden to take out a $100,000 loan because the property developed behind us is getting developed. So a couple little things. Other than that, again, I don't want to sound like I'm against development in Leavenworth County. I think it can be a good thing, and I sure appreciate all of your guys' time, and I got to know a lot of you, and I'm all for the 5 county commissions, and you're all wonderful people. So I respect your opinion. I just think with this new mix that we're in between now and the future comprehensive plan, it is a tough decision, but at the same time, if it's going to be another 6 months to get it correct for the whole county, why not wait another 6 months so everybody's on the same page in theory? So that's just my opinion. But again, thank you very much.
Trent?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
You came up here, I guess what they're saying is if we delay till the comprehensive plan, then they're gonna miss a whole building season.
Well, they can always reapply. I mean, I get that, but also, Mr. Zeman, to your point, when I buy a loaf of bread or when I go buy a new car, it doesn't turn into 2 motorcycles tomorrow. Like everybody knows when you purchase a property that when I bought my house, I knew it was on 5 acres. And again, if it turns to 2.5 on my land, great. I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. It is what it is. And I get development, but yes, I understand, and I don't want to be. I wouldn't want, if that was my piece of land, I wouldn't want that, but at the same time, when I bought it, I knew exactly what it was when we purchased it, you know what I mean? And as developers, you know that.
Now, a couple of these other issues that they brought up about the dam and the safety for kids, do you
Yes.
see that as an issue as well?
Yeah, I'm more concerned about erosion for my pond. I don't want it to go away. I mean, obviously, because our pond's a little bit further away from their property. Safety of kids, I understand it. I hope I have a good insurance agent. That's kind of, anyways, but no.
Well, are you?
Yeah, I don't know if the fence can be implemented or what, but again, that's the risk everybody has on property anytime there's water out there. It is, especially when the pond's closer to the property. Ours is a little bit further around. It's just all the water runs into it, and I don't know what would happen, so.
That was going to be my question is, do you know, I'm looking at a map, but I don't have topography lines on here. Do you know how many acres of that parcel actually drains to your?
Well, there's a grassland levee area out there, clear up to it. So it's a good majority of it that's on their property. So I don't know what.
I wouldn't say majority, because the reason I bring this up is because we can make this one of the conditions in the plat that they do erosion control, so that wouldn't be
Yes.
detriment to your pond. But looking at the map, I'd say less than 20% of that property drains to your pond. But even if there's 20% of that, we can make sure that it doesn't erode and silt your pond shut. So, because that is a valid point.
I appreciate your time. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Barbara Coble, 22617 155th Street, and our property joins theirs on the north. And I just kind of feel like the comprehensive plan has been set for 5 acres. Why change it? Why should they have 2.5 acres and everybody else is rated for 5 acres? I would have to agree with Diane. I don't think they really take care of the property. The mowing has to be forced. My husband went and mowed the front of their property because the grass was getting so high. And yeah, it does drain down on Peters really bad. So if they're not fixing it while they're happening in agriculture, are they going to fix it if they get it to 2.5 on houses? That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, in the county, we do not have property standards to enforce on anybody. Yes, sir. Yes, I'll open it up. You are the owner, correct? Yes. Or anyone else in opposition to this before we hear from the owner? Okay, we can hear from the owner now.
My name is John Bonet. My address is 16391 Fairmount Road, about a mile away from this property. Don't really know where to start, but I guess one of the first things is when we first bought the property, yes, we knew it was zoned 5 acres. We also knew that right across the street was 2.5, and felt that it was like most properties, most zoning areas, Basher included. When I was on the council back then, their attitude was, let's zone everything R at 0. That way, if any development, anything needs to be done, they'll have to come to us, and then we can decide what we'll do with the thing. That is probably a little backwards from the way you guys do it now, and I understand what you do, and I respect that. But as far as the tier zoning, like was just mentioned, it just makes more sense that it'd be like across each side of the road. But also I hear about, Dan says we can make more money or make as much money on 5 acres. Well, we can also make more money on city lots, which the city of Basler approached us. We did not approach them. The mayor came to us and asked us if we would voluntarily annex into the city, and he would bring city sewers to us. That was not the reason the negotiations broke down. It was because the size of the lot that they wanted was larger than what we wanted. If we were all about making money, we would have just done the 5 acres and gone, or we certainly would have took Basler up on the 150 by 100 square foot, 110,000 square foot lots and made even more money. It's not about money. It's about doing what we feel is right with the property. Just like anybody here that has a business, you feel by your past experience about everything you know about what you do, what is the right way to do whatever it is you're doing. And we feel that 2.5 acres is right because it is on the outside of the city limits. It is a buffer into the truly agricultural area. And as far as the aesthetics, our feeling is 5 acres, although it'd be a heck of a lot faster and cheaper to develop, it's not good. Talk about a detriment to society, to the city, or to the area. So many times when you get too large of an area, or too large of a lot size, it's too big to mow, and they don't. And I do mow my property, contrary to what we just said. We are not, I actually mow the property myself. The owners or the tenants that are there now, I mow it. I know it's mowed. I can't be told otherwise. I'm not there doing it. As far as the pond is concerned, I drove that area before I bought it with the owner, the previous owner, and that was washed out years ago. That was always to the point where it was not holding water, and that was pointed out when we drove the property. As far as the previous owner taking care of that, he was so bad out of health for the last several years, he couldn't take care of anything. What they had back there was a dilapidated pond that was put in just for, it was one of the deals like the terraces. I get them myself from owning land and the agriculture area. People come up, the county or this program here will let you put in tiers if and they'll pay us to do that. Well, they want us to let them do work on our property because it's a moneymaker for them. Does it need something there? Yes. Will it have it? More so with a development than it would be now. As far as the concerns about the erosion control onto Mr. Peterson's property, that it's going to be a lot less erosion after it's developed with the sodded yards than it is now with a field that's tilled up. I mean, it just, and as far as the KDH is concerned, KDHE is concerned, excuse me, they make sure that we have proper erosion control. They're on our property several times checking to make sure that is the case. So there's just, I just don't know. I'm sure I've missed some of the things I need to address. I always thought it'd be better if I wrote this stuff down, but I'm just not that type of person. I do what I feel needs to be done and should be done, and I do it to the point that I'm proud of it. As far as taking care of the property or poor property owner, I've done this end of this year will represent 35 years of me building and developing in Basler and city in the county of Leavenworth, and I'm proud of everything I've done and still own many of what I've built, and every one of which I've had people like have shown up today in previous meetings, saying they didn't want that because of this, that, and that. All of it is just us four and no more. They're here. They don't want anybody else here. I mean, it's just, the last meeting, we even had a guy that said he didn't want it because he had to wait in line at Kelly's for a table. It's like, are you serious? I mean, where do you expect people to live? Are you not going to have kids anymore? Is nobody going to be allowed to have kids? Because if they do, they're going to have a place to live. If you're a citizen of Basehor, do you want your kids to have grandkids and they have to move to another state or another county to do so? It just makes sense to make the best use as far as density is concerned. And as far as everyone's concerned, we feel that our approach to it in a rural setting at 2.5 acre estate lots is the answer to everybody's problem. Is there going to be something you can find to gripe about? Absolutely, and I'm sure they'll find it. But I don't know why someone wouldn't expect a 2.5 acre lot on your right to also be on your left. I mean, it just makes sense to me. But this is your job, not mine, and obviously we'll follow whatever decision you make. But I ask that you consider the flow of the density. It just makes sense to me. But anyway, thank you.
I have a question for you. And by the way, I had all these issues marked, and the only one that you missed that I caught, and maybe I just missed your answer, was the fencing for the kids to keep them away from the pond. Is there a plan for that, or would you develop a plan for that?
I don't see, right now there is a barbed wire fence there. The truth is, if you're going to make anything similar to like a pool or something like that, you have to have, there's very strict codes as far as what fence you can put up there, and realistically, that sort of fence would be hard to justify on that size, because it'd be something that each individual landowner would have to either, as we sold the lots, would either have to do, or if we did, maintain. The fact is, there's enticements everywhere for kids, and you can't make a bulletproof or a safety net for every situation. Can they walk across the street there and get in a pond? Absolutely. I've got a pond myself. It happened to me. I've got barbed wire fence around.
But there's ways to ameliorate that. I mean, there's things you can do as you do this platting and everything. There are ways to reduce that risk. Is that something you'd commit to at least working on?
I don't know how feasible that would be, and the reality is I don't know what the legalities as far as liability would be concerned once you did build the fence that was supposed to do that.
Would you be willing to look into it as you develop?
I would be willing to look into it, but just like anything else, it becomes a situation where although we don't do it just for the money, we do it as a matter of pride more so than turning a buck. We also have to turn a buck.
Right, I understand. Second issue is on this spillway, dam, drainage. Is that eventually going to be repaired? Or
absolutely, probably enlarged. It'll be dictated by the planning. We'll actually follow a stricter guideline of runoff water than what is there now. We'll have to, there's all kinds of runoff calculations you do based on the roofs and the hard surfaces and everything like that.
Wouldn't
It's hard to talk.
Wouldn't the plat fix the pond problem? I mean, is the pond still going to be there after the lots were developed?
Because it's in the flow line now, yes.
So, but it would be repaired, it would be...
Absolutely, and probably enlarged.
So part of the plat would be repairing the dam?
Right. And like I said, this, because of the nature of the property, it is not, the homeowners had their home, the original landowners had their home on the property. They always cash rented the property to a local farmer, and unless you're out there, like when you're out there mowing your lawn, you notice things that need repaired. But if you're not out there because somebody else is leasing it and it's 500 foot, 800 foot away from your house, it's not something you check on a daily basis. But like I said, when I drove that property, there was ditch fill, there was a lot of issues that we knew we'd have to address, and we will when we do if we do the development. Anything else?
And you said Basehor reached out to you?
We did not initiate that contact. City of Basehor reached out to us, and actually we had probably half a dozen meetings with the city. And each time our goal was to have larger lots, and that alone is what separated our and kind of stalled and stopped our conversation. If we wanted it in the city limits, all we have to do is say, we want the city limits, and we'd be annexed. I know it's not that
Voluntarily.
simple. You guys would have to approve it and all that stuff, but I think it's realistic to say that, Center Point, or whatever it's called now, I think it's Center Point now, 15 years old subdivision, Falcon Lakes, all that out in annexation was still in keeping with what Baser's seen as their growth area, and I don't see that not being the case if we were to, and we were told that they would take us in. Even if we didn't, we would not be able to afford to bring sewers all the way there. That was offered to us at the city's expense. Let me qualify that statement. That was, the mayor wasn't able to make that, decision on his own. He felt with a level of confidence that he would be able to do, achieve that, because his goal is, and I hate to speak for him, but what it appeared to be his goal was to get the highest density of housing around his city, and I understand that completely. Also, I think you have to be conscious of the fact you need a flow. I don't know of any city that doesn't have an area where it starts, lessening and density, and you start making the transition into open farm ground. And if you don't do it here, where do you do it? I mean, we're right on the edge of the city. We're less than an eighth of a mile from Fairmount, which that is their drainage area. That is what their urban growth dividing line was. So it just makes sense that would be the case. Start bringing water with me.
Okay. So if we approve this, when do you anticipate these homes being completed?
It's hard to say with and that's one of our passing concerns here is that, the ebb and flow of the building. You just don't know. As soon as we get it, well, the last development I put in, right when it got approved, is right at 07, so it's like, what I thought would go really quick actually just finished, about 2 years ago. So that's hard to say. Obviously, we're going to try to move it as fast as we can. We have, I believe I still have 3 custom homes that are going to go in as soon as we break ground. We actually, we're ready to break ground as soon as we get the okay. We'll start construction, immediately. Matter of fact, I plan on tearing the barn, the silo, and everything else. Not everything else, but almost immediately. We bought it in March, I believe, of 18, and I had intended on and maybe it's a little naive, but based on what I've seen with my past history in the businesses, it just seemed a logical move for me. And I hesitate to say that because it isn't. I don't want to insult your intelligence. Obviously, it's not a no-brainer. I mean, there's something to think about there. But I really felt confident, based on what I know about the business, it was a reasonable assumption to make that it would be approved at 2.5. But if that's not the case, then that's not the case. But I won't, and my partner feels the same way. We won't go 5 acres with it. It's just a poor use of land, and I'd rather sell it and let somebody else, develop it or do whatever than to do that. But I don't mind addressing the facts, but the stuff that insults me as a person, I have a really hard time with that. I often wish that most of these meetings were set up where the people against it went first, so we could come back and say, well, wait a minute, and it seems productive, because it's like, okay, there's your problem. Okay, here's the answer. Here's should make you feel better about that. But I've just been here too long. I mean, I'll take you anywhere to everywhere I've built or developed, and there's nothing I'm not proud of, nothing that everybody else that was involved in it and is involved in it now is not proud of. I just don't, in the first major subdivision, it took 2 years to get through, in Baser. Same thing, this kind of stuff. And it's like, but then now it's been there for almost 20 years now, and it's the talk of everybody loves it. It's a little subdivision for elderly. And we still own it, we still maintain it, we are good property owners. And that, I take pride in what I build, I take pride in what I own, and that won't change. And what will change is what I do where, based on what I'm able to do, how that affects how I feel about what I do. So if I don't think it's the right way if I have my heart's not in it, and, if I don't feel it's the right thing to do, I just won't do it,
Okay. So, any other questions, Mr. Bonet?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
I'm Ted Caldwell, and I've lived next to that property for about 22, 23 years. The question I asked the commissioners and everybody, I have 6 acres. If I get old and can't get around, can I just split mine 2.5 acres and sell half of it?
You can apply to do that, yeah. Anyone else? Okay, we will close public hearing and return to regular session. Now we can have our discussions. Correct, Counselor?
Please do.
All right, thank you. Any thoughts or ideas? I mean, I guess the city of Basel was definitely interested, it sounds like.
Well, and the reason is for the revenue, and my whole point is, what I try to do is keep people's taxes as low as I can make them. So the way to lower the adjacent properties' taxes and everybody's taxes in the whole county, actually, is to look for the most revenue we can generate. If you look at this, is it a good fit? I think it's a compromise. Instead of 5 or 3 houses per acre, 2.5 fits the neighborhood. And the bottom line is, we're saying yes to $8 million in valuation or no. So do we want to try to help lower people's taxes or not?
I won't add a lot to the adjacent zoning piece. I think there has been a lot of questions about the contiguous versus adjacent versus spot. And I think if you didn't have examples within that kind of proximity, it would make it even that much more difficult to have that same argument. I go back to, while I'm definitely one of the newest here, I've gone to a number of state organized meetings with other counties. And I think although we have a lot of people here that consider ourselves rural, the rest of the state considers us urban. And that's, I think, a very difficult thing for a lot of people to maybe get their arms around. And although I realize there are far more rural areas of Leavenworth County, I think we have to look at where logical growth is going to happen, and it's going to happen in and along interstates and in and along highways. And while I can totally appreciate and sympathize and understand those that love where they live and move there for a reason and would like to see as much of it remain, to Jeff's point, we're challenged with what can we do to accomplish what all of the residents are asking us to, and there is no other way to do it than through revenue. And that revenue is going to have to come from some type of development, not further taxation of existing residents. So, if there was any concern about whether or not any type of development, 5 acre, 2.5, would meet KDHE standards, would go through the regular platting process, would address any drainage, would address, safety with emergency management, those would all be concerns. But again, I don't think, number one, I know we'll address those, but that's not what's being requested of us today. It's really to understand what 11 homes, 10 or 11 homes versus 20 or 22 homes might do. And that's too great of an opportunity, I think, for us to pass. Again, if you look what's around it, I think it's hard to argue that this is drastically different, whether you look across the street or less than a block away, a similar type neighborhood with density. I think the comprehensive plan that was brought up is a great argument, too. And while it's still fluid, based on all the meetings I've attended and what we've seen, is that we're going to see far greater density in most every area that we see in and around 7 Highway than lesser density. So this would go along with that, not against it. And to be honest, if the new comp plan came out and it was to somehow still call this R5, I would probably be somebody that would still argue against it. Zoning doesn't in my opinion, make development happen. It takes developers and people, and that makes development happen. Zoning is an aspect of where it can happen more easily or not. But I think, the comprehensive plan is much more likely to support than go against. And a matter of fact, I would say it would probably argue for higher density. I mean, there's all kinds of conversations about how via KDHE, the septic requirements are going far under an acre because, technology and the ability to perk and everything else would allow us to do that. So, again, safety concerns, I understand. Pond access, I understand. There's, I don't know, probably 100 developments all around here that are adjacent to some type of water source that are not fenced in. You can go in any direction, and I can show you one. So, those are my thoughts.
Any thoughts, Commissioner Stevens?
I guess I'm torn a little because of the fact that I do believe the comprehensive plan that is in existence carries a lot of weight because of the fact that we do want to follow policy, and the road does divide where the comprehensive plan would allow the development and would not allow the development. Even though it does look arbitrary, if you look at the map, it does. However, because I've seen the map of what's being considered in the new comprehensive plan, and I've seen that it is 2.5, that is persuasive, at the charrette, that's persuasive to me to say that by us going back and depending on the 2008 comprehensive plan to make this decision, that's probably not proper. So I think we should probably make a decision now that by making this decision, we will be basically making the decision for the comprehensive plan, which will be, this will be 2.5. So the comprehensive plan does hold a lot of weight with me, but I don't think that we can, because we're in the midst of change, I don't want to delay their development just because of a government red tape bureaucracy saying we're not going to have this done until March, April, May, June. Therefore, we're not going to approve it and we're going to just kick the can down the way, and then we're going to cause ourselves to not have the 22 homes begun. And I do believe the tax base is an important issue as well.
Can we make a decision regarding what the future comprehensive plan may or may not be? Can we make some type of a binding decision without a public hearing, without having that people be able to support? I'm just asking. That's a question, Mr. Van Paris. When you're saying, well, we can just go ahead and in advance say this is going to be 2.5. No,
I don't know if we'll be saying that in so many words, but by our actions, we will.
Any thoughts, Commissioner Colson?
I don't know of any zones in Leavenworth City and Baser City and Tongi City that use the center line of the street to separate zones. They're one tier deep on both sides of the street.
Does our entire comprehensive plan use that as the measure?
Pretty much. Because it's the easiest cadastral line to follow. I get, general cartography practices, it makes it an easier map to draw. And I think it's because they knew this was just a guideline, not a hard and fast, this is exactly black and white the way it'll be. It was more like a guideline saying, well, about in this area is where you want this. Because once they get further down the road and just like.
But as people make decisions on.
Planning and zoning's been not using it as a guideline all these years. You've been using it as hard and fast, correct? The lines on the comprehensive plan?
I think it depends on the situation.
And planning and zoning said no.
Because if to say that that's been used hard and fast, there wouldn't be any SUPs or,
You're right. You're right. But
It's a guideline.
But they tend to, I'm assuming that's the main reason they denied it was probably because of that, mainly because of the 2008 comprehensive plan.
We give quite a bit of weight to the future land use map, which is derived from the county comprehensive plan, yes.
The current one.
The old one.
Yeah.
The really old one.
Well, it may be really old, but it is what it,
Well, my concern is that if the city of Bayshore were to run sewers out there, you'd have 100 and, how many houses would that be? 103 per acre? Be 3 per, you could have 140, 50 houses out there.
And that's why I thought
Now,
this
I
was a
think
good
that would be
compromise.
detrimental to the
That's why I
area.
thought, that's why I thought this was a good compromise, because the point I like to make also is when you give people 5 acres a lot of time in the county, they end up mowing 2 acres of it and let the other 3 grow up, or one of the neighbors hay it for them. But they don't personally take care of it, because it seems like 2 is about the average of what people like to take care of.
Well, if the city reached out to these folks, I'd say the city's very interested in this area.
but not.
Because of the revenue generated from the taxes. So we're willing to
Well,
say
and
no
that's
to
why
that.
I'm assuming any negotiation broke down is when you talk about 11 or 22, none of those would
High-density.
support any of the economics related to
The
the
sewers?
infrastructure they talked about, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this would not allow for that sewer extension, that.
And benefit district.
Because I don't know about you guys, but the most calls I get is about taxes. So anything we can do to help lower people's taxes, I think is our priority one.
Well, it's the second one, which is fix the roads.
That too.
I get a lot of calls
It's a
about
close
land
second,
use.
yeah.
Well, yours is a hot topic
Yeah.
right now, County Road 1. So anyways, is there any more discussion on this?
I just, like, whenever we can, to follow the recommendations of the planning commission, but that's,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
'cause I think
No,
we've kind of gone against them a few times lately.
right. So, entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve rezone from R5 to R2.5.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I think the discussion point that I would once again reiterate is the fact that we have a comprehensive plan. It looks like that plan's gonna encompass this area. It looks like, to me, it looks like it from everything I've seen, all the maps I've seen. I've been shown even this morning, those maps. And it's even more dense, some of the, on that comprehensive plan map than the 2.5. So I'm very comfortable with that this will be, the decision would be made in the future. So we shouldn't just delay it with government red tape.
And one of the things I want to try to make sure of in the new comp plan, if they are going to use it as a black and white document, that they go 1 tier deep on both sides of the roads when they break the zoning from one zone to another. That's the way all zoning
In
maps
which
work.
direction then? To higher or lower density?
Be both directions?
But how do
Same
you-
on both sides. I don't know if it's going to be higher or lower on either side, but
No, I'm just, it's,
depends on the area, I guess. I'm just saying, you don't go down 4th Street and it's all residential on one side and all commercial on the other. It's just the way it works.
But I do understand the property owner's concern about the fencing and all that, and I hope that, and I'm sure that the developer will be responsible, and I'm hoping that that's the case.
Well, I don't want to see 150 there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Because it is a rural area. Okay. Any other discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 no.
Aye.
And we were going to skip the consideration of granting the building permit, correct? Because them folks are not here.
We were postponing that one, right? Took
Right.
it off.
Postponing that.
Right, that was removed.
So there's no Crystal, there's no discussion on this one at all then?
Well, may as well know.
On the,
On the Slaymaker property?
Yeah,
I believe she would like to be here to make a request in person. I believe she requested next week. I will double check that, but.
Okay.
So she's gonna bring it back up, just not
Yeah.
today? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and, sorry, Commissioners, I will need to bring a resolution next week for the rezoning. We did not prepare one, but I will bring it forward next week with the approval on the resolution for it to be signed. Okay?
Okay.
I think that's all.
Thank you, Crystal.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
All right. Do you have any other business for us?
You have the work session this afternoon.
Yeah, we have a work session at 1:30.
You guys want to bump it up or leave it at 1:30?
Can we bump it up?
Like go right into it?
Mr. Chairman, unlike most of your meetings, a work session does not involve the invitation to the public to participate. If you wish to start your work session early, I don't think there's any prohibition against that. Your agenda item should be followed when the public would need to have some anticipation that they should attend and can provide input.
Is that a yes?
I don't have a problem with
Take a short break.
Yeah.
He can never say yes or no.
And then, how about 11:30 and then go back? and
That's an
is that-
affirmative.
Okay,
Then maybe we can be done by 12:30 or something. Yeah.
okay.
Is that a good idea?
All right. I don't know if we got, I just want to make sure we got everything covered. 2 commissioners will attend the County Extension Council dinner.
At Schwinn Barn,
Yes.
Twin Barn and you, right? 2 of you.
Tuesday night,
Okay.
Monday night, Tuesday night.
Monday night on
Monday, right?
December 9th at 6 PM
I'll be there.
at Swin Barn.
I'll be
Okay,
Okay.
that's covered.
Saturday
All right.
morning, there's a couple.
Saturday, the Women's Republican. I can attend that, the brunch.
I'm out of town. So.
Okay,
Yeah, I
I'll
can't
do
be
that. But
I'm
what
gonna
about
be
the
there.
afternoon at the League of Women Voters?
I'm doing the League of Women Voters.
Anyone else? Anyone?
I'm out of town.
Going to that. I thought you were going to that.
I just responded to Barb that I can't make it now on Saturday.
So.
Okay.
I also can't make it. on
Well, I'll do
Saturday.
the League of
You gotta have
Women
more than
Voters.
one
It's
there?
not a problem.
All right,
Yeah,
yeah, I
one there.
think 2 of us can go. I mean,
Yeah, I'm just saying.
If I'm in town, I'll come.
well, then let me know.
I'll let
So
you
he
know.
doesn't show
Let
up.
me know early enough that I can,
I'll call you if I am.
all right.
I'll know by Friday.
So that one will be, that one's 9 to 11, this one's 2 to 4.
Yeah.
and I got-
But we had it on the agenda in case.
Right.
Right, but
And
like I said, it's fine if 2 go, I just don't want 3 to show up and then we talk.
Right.
I mean, the brunch, we can all go, we're not gonna speak on anything.
So we're okay to go to the women's brunch?
Yes, without, because we're not gonna speak, I mean.
and then,
Well, I definitely won't talk to you guys.
Okay.
I know
that's fine.
that I've been
I won't
invited.
take it personal.
I think everyone has or will be to the CASA Christmas party on the 17th, which I will be
That's at
attending.
9.
Yeah, it's in the evening, which I will be attending because
17th.
I'm bringing dessert, so I'm coming.
Okay.
That's a Tuesday?
Yeah, it's Tuesday, it's same day as our legislative deal. And we'll be
The
talking about
breakfast.
that in our work
Yeah,
session.
that's going to be a long day anyway.
And I guess, like I said, the Mid-America Regional Council would like to come and talk in a work session in January. And also KDOT would like to come and speak, and we'll get into that more in our work session also.
That's good.
So,
Do we know which legislators are going to be coming to
should be all of them
the, have they all?
in our
been-
area. They all pretty much show up.
Good.
It's always a good turnout.
Just free food.
And I guess the public's invited to that?
It has to be open to the public.
Yeah. So, I mean, is it cost for breakfast?
You can't charge, right?
No.
Starting
Is
to
there
get
a charge
nervous about
for
attending all
breakfast
those
if public
legislators.
shows up, or is that, do we know that?
I thought,
Okay. I do know some members of the public do want to go to
but
that.
you indicated that you can't have a cost.
You cannot charge admission. The cost of a meal could be charged because
Okay.
that's discretionary.
All right. Okay.
If they want to buy a meal, they can.
They can buy a meal if they want to buy a meal, but they,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, I don't think any of us got a whole lot to report on. Commissioner Stevens and I attended the, what's it called now, our Rural Leavenworth County Inc. Meeting last night in Baser at the library. Don't believe I attended anything else because of the holidays. So, any commissioners have any updates on anything?
Easton City Council meeting Monday night. I'm working with them on those FEMA lots. Solar panels they want to try to put up to offset their energy costs for the city in the flood zone areas. So I'm working with the FEMA guy on that. And stop sign. We got our Public Works Department working on a stop sign that happens to be a border street between the county and the city. Leavenworth City Council meeting last night was pretty boring.
Don't say that, it was not.
All they're doing is,
Oh, shame on you, I thought it
were you
was
there, John?
interesting.
Were you awake?
It was interesting, they were going over codes.
Yeah, they're going over building codes. They basically are going to
They
make
on,
everybody's plumbing bill go
what
up.
year,
They're doing the.
what year adopted codes are?
No,
Man, they're between like 3 different years.
Yeah.
They're adopting parts
the
of
newest right now.
the newest one, parts of the old one, and parts of the one that was even prior to that
And see,
one.
that's what we'll be up against.
They're a
if we do
mix.
that.
Yeah.
It's a
Okay.
mix.
Anyway. So, anybody else got anything that they attended? I know the holidays was not a whole lot, then motion to
Well,
adjourn.
Well, there's just for people to know that there is the tour of vintage homes in Leavenworth this weekend, and the
Oh, there's-
community center, there is the, well, at the carousel, there's the small mall, and then across at the community center is the German Fest Christmas market thing. And so I think, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on.
There's a lot. Church of the Open Door, drive-through thing.
Sis Sweets will have their decorating the
Oh,
cookie
drive through
thing.
Bethlehem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Commissioner, the Leavenworth Rotary Club will be conducting a luncheon this afternoon at noon at the community center.
But I apparently will not be making it.
Okay.
Quite an event. I encourage people to attend.
I do too.
Okay. Then, motion to adjourn.